إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه أما بعد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الحديث هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد Alhamdulillah, we continue going over the tremendous piece of advice from the Fadilat al-Shaykh al-Allama Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan Hafidhahullah Ta'ala. We had stopped in the last week's class at the portion of the advice from the Allama, and bi'ithnillahi ta'ala we're going to go back a little bit because the subject of today's class, it was linked to the subject of last week's class, or this portion of the advice was linked to what was previously before it, and there is a connection. Naam. So we understand a little better. We'll go back just a little bit, inshallah ta'ala. The Shaykh, he mentions, Hafidhahullah, he says, وَكَذَلِكَ عَلَى الْمَرْءِ الْمُسْلِمَ. He says, and likewise, it is upon the Muslim woman. Likewise, it is binding upon the Muslim woman. And remember, before continuing, that in this section, the Shaykh, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, he's outlining things that will safeguard and protect the Muslimah. He's outlining things that will safeguard and protect the Muslim woman from fitna, that they will safeguard and protect her from any type of trials and tribulations, any type of temptations, calamities, so on and so forth. Then these are measures by way in which she is protected and she is safeguarded. And it is important for the Muslimah, for the Muslim woman, to remember always her value and how she is precious. And thus you will find the great concern of the people of knowledge to convey this reality and to outline those things by way in which are protections for the women. To outline those things that are protections for the women. And bila shakwa, bila rayb, when one examines the likes of these things, they will also see the benefit that are in it for the men as well. However, the stress and the emphasis is upon the Muslim women, right? Due to their tremendous status and due to them being precious, so on and so forth. Now, على كل حال, the Allama, he goes on and he says, وَكَذَلِكَ عَلى الْمَرْأَةِ الْمُسْلِمَةِ, and likewise it is upon the Muslim woman, ألا تكثر من الخروج من البيت إلا لأجل حاجة لا تنقضى إلا بخروجها. It says also, it is a must and upon the Muslim woman to not travel outside of the house except due to a necessity, and except due to affairs in which they cannot be satisfied except due to her leaving. Except due to her leaving the house. Naam. ولكن, the Shaykh he says, ولكن تخرج. نعم. معذرة. The Shaykh, حفظه الله تعالى, he says, ولكن تخرج متسترة غير متطيبة. He says, but she should go out, that when she goes out, because she has to go out, because that particular affair, it will not and cannot be handled and taken care of except by her going out. He said that she should go out anonymously. She should go out anonymously and inconspicuously. And she should go out in a manner where she is not perfumed. She should go outside in a manner where she is not perfumed. لأنها إذا خرجت متطيبة فإن ذلك سبب لوقوع الشر وجلب الأنظار إليها والنظر الرجال إليها ومتابعتهم لها. He said, because if the woman were to go out and she were fragranced, or she were to fragrance herself and perfume herself and so on and so forth, such that that fragrance can reach others, that if she were to go out in this fashion, then this will be the cause of fitna. This will be a means by way in which evil could fall upon her, and a way in which she can be tested and touched with the evil. Because going out in such a manner, it will bring and draw attention to her. It will draw the eyes to her. And this is clear, and we understand the likes of this, because it's possible that there are situations where the men, they may not necessarily take notice to the woman's presence, but once the smell of the fragrance of the perfume touches their nostrils, it will draw their attention that there's a woman in their midst, and thus their eyes will be drawn to her. They will look and see what is the origin of this fragrance. And it will draw the eyes of the men in her direction to such that they may follow her. Meaning they will follow her with their glance, or وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, they may physically follow her. They may physically follow her. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. So all of these things, they have to be avoided. All of these things, they have to be avoided. Why? So as to protect, and as a protection for the Muslim women. So that she is not followed by the gaze of the men, nor the men looking upon her, so on and so forth. So if she goes out, then she goes out in a manner where she is not perfumed. And the Shaykh, he will come back to this particular point, and that is the advice for the Muslim woman if she has to leave her house. But before continuing with that advice, the Shaykh, حفظه ta'ala, he mentions, فَمَهْمَا أَمْكَنْ, he said, but as much as possible, يعني أن تبقى المرأة في بيتها, that as much as possible, a woman, she should remain inside of her home. فَهَذَا أَحْفَظ لَهَا, because this is more preserving for her. This is more better for her. You understand? And this is safer for her. وقال Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in Nisa al-Nabi, he says to the wives of the Prophet, the Nisa Nabiyihi, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says to the wives of his Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And it's important, and I want to remind the sisters of this, because many of these sisters, they have been polluted, and their minds, they have been corrupted by the methodology of the women's lib movement. That by the women's liberation movement. And so on and so forth. So you will find that some sisters, they may find something within themselves when they hear the likes of this. They may find something within themselves when they hear the likes of this. For the woman to remain inside her home, and this is better for her, unless there is a necessity that she come out, then she should come out in a manner in which has been legislated. When you hear the likes of these things, women, they may even take offense to it, not remembering, as a sheikh, he mentions a very important point, not remembering who are your role models. Who are your role models? Muslim women. Now, we ask you, who are your role models? Are your role models personality so-and-so from the women's lib movement? As you see in your mind, strong woman so-and-so, courageous so-and-so from the Muslim, from the women's liberation movement, and so on and so forth. Who are your role models? Or are your role models the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So now when we look at it from this standpoint, and we look at it from this direction, if we were to look at all of these personalities and all of these figures, and then we compare them to the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa radiyallahu ta'ala anhun, if we were to look and compare, then there is no comparison. The wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa radiyallahu ta'ala anhun, then they are from the best of the women of this ummah. They are the best and the finest of the women of this nation. They are our mothers. They are our mothers. So who will be the example? Who will be the role model? Which one is prestigious? Of course, the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa radiyallahu ta'ala anhun, they are prestigious. They exceed in superiority. They are the finest of the examples for the Muslim woman. They are successful. And if a Muslim woman, she wants to be successful, then it is upon her to fashion herself after our mothers. To fashion herself after our mothers. Because they were the embodiment of strength. They were the embodiment of integrity. They were the embodiment of all wholesome and righteous and beautiful things. So thus, if a Muslim woman wants to know how to be a strong woman, how to be a strong wife, how to be a strong worshiper, so on and so forth, to the end of that, then she would do that by what? By imitating the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa radiyallahu ta'ala anhun. Just look at our mother Aisha as an example. Look at how our mother Aisha, for those women who are concerned with education, those women, and all of our mothers, they were knowledgeable, and all of our mothers, they were concerned with education. But we're just taking as example our mother Aisha, radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Look at our mother Aisha, and how our mother Aisha, she was a scholar. Our mother Aisha, she was a scholar in the religion. She was from the finest and the most knowledgeable of this ummah. From the finest and the most knowledgeable of this ummah. Our mother Aisha, she was from the most knowledgeable of the Sahaba. So if a woman is concerned with education and she's concerned with enriching her mind and so on and so forth, then let her take our mother Aisha as an example. Our mother Aisha, she was a scholar inside of this religion. So let them take our mother Aisha as an example. And this is ala sabili mithal. So that woman who has those particular aspirations, then we have what? An example, a fine example inside of our mother Aisha. So it is never to be said that Islam is not concerned with the education of women and so on and so forth. No, no way. But rather, it's very much concerned with the education of the Muslim woman, because it is concerned with what? The education of the Muslims, period. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. That seeking knowledge, it is obligatory upon every Muslim. Every Muslim. وجاء الرواية, and then it comes a narration where it says wa muslima, and also the Muslim woman. But this narration, it is not authentic, meaning this addition wa muslima is not authentic. Why? Because when the word Muslim is used generally like that, then it is talking about all of the Muslims, both male and female. Muslims, male and female. So there is no need, from the standpoint of the meaning, to bring this redundancy and to say wa muslima, and the Muslim woman, because the women, they are included with what? In the word Muslim. Seeking knowledge is obligatory upon the Muslim, on every Muslim. But this is from the standpoint of the meaning. There's no need to mention Muslima because it's included in Muslim. And from the standpoint of the chain itself, then Shaykh Nasr rahimahullah ta'ala mentions that this narration, it is not authentic. Ala kulli hal, so we understand from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that what? That seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim, both man and woman, both male and female. You understand? So with this being the case, a person can never come and say that Islam is not concerned, nor does it place an emphasis on women's education. No, but rather it does, to the such that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that it is obligatory upon the Muslim woman, like it's obligatory upon the Muslim man, to what? To seek knowledge. To seek knowledge. So for those sisters who have aspirations to learn and to enrich their minds and so on and so forth, then take our mother Aisha as an example. Take our mother Aisha as an example. Right. So remember that our mothers, they are our examples. They are our examples. And if anybody thinks that this is not the case, then we have to ask you, do you think you can do better than them? Do you think you can be better than them? Do you think you are better than them? This is the question we're asking them. And when that is posed, of course, the answers, they come back from those who have intellects, of course. Then the answer will come back, no way. No one is trying to say that. Wait. So if this is the case, then what was good for them, bila shak wa bila rayb, is what is good for you. So I want you just to have this in your mind. Ala kulli hal, the Shaykh, he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says to the wives of his Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَهُنَّ قُدْوَةٌ, and they are examples to be followed. Allah ta'ala, he says to them, وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنْ, and remain inside of your homes. This ayah, it can be found in Surah Al-Ahzab, and it's verse 33. In Surah Al-Ahzab, and it's verse 33. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this, I want this down for homework, to remember this portion of the ayah, inshallah ta'ala, at the very minimum. And for those who can remember the whole of the verse, then this is better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, and remain inside of your homes. إقررنا من القرار وهو البقاء وعدم الخروج. He says, meaning stay there. And this is from al-qirar, to remain or to stay, which means to stay without going out. To stay without going out. And what is meant, of course, is what? Except for necessity. Except for necessity. As we find times when the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, they were outside the house. We have many hadith where they were outside the house. So we understand from this that it means then to stay inside of their homes, except for necessity. When necessity dictates that you leave, then it's okay to leave as long as it's with the in a legislative manner, and so on and so forth. Now, the Shaykh, he says, لأن ذلك أحفظ للمرأة. He said, because this is more safeguarding for the woman. This is safer for the woman. She's better protected when she's in her house, in her safe place. Now, فمهما بقيت في بيتها فهذا أحسن لها. So the more she remains inside of her home, then this is better for her. وإذا اقتضت اقتضت الحاجة أن تخرج فإنها تخرج ولكن مع تستر. He says, but if she has to go out because of a necessity, she has to take care of a necessity, then she is to go out, but she is to go out what? Covered. She is to go out while covered. حتى إن الله سبحانه وتعالى يحب من المرأة أن تصلي في بيتها ولا تخرج للصلاة في المسجد مع أن المسجد بيت العبادة وبيت للطهارة ولكن خروجها عرضة للشر ولذلك الصلاة المرأة في بيتها أفضل من صلاتها في المسجد. He says, so much so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves for the woman to remain in the home as much as possible, is that it is not binding. Or again, that Allah ta'ala, He loves for the woman to stay inside of her home to the point that for the woman it's better for her to pray inside of her house. She prays inside of her house, and she does not go out to pray inside of the masjid. This is along with the fact that the masjid, then they are the houses for worship. The masjid, it is the house, it is the place of purity and the like. But when she goes out in general, then she is exposed to potential harm. She's exposed to potential harm. So for that reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has made it that the woman's prayer inside of her home is actually better. And she gets more reward for praying inside her home than she gets for praying in the masjid. She gets more reward for praying inside her home than she gets for praying inside the masjid. And this is how important, and the Shaykh, he mentions this to show the importance of what? For the woman to stay inside of her home as much as she possibly can. But with that, it is important to understand, and the Shaykh, he makes it very clear, this is not to say that the woman can't go to the masjid. This is not to say that. We don't want this to be the takeaway. That people think, okay, now I'm not going to go to the masjid. That's it, I'm not going to. No way. Because remember, she can leave her house out of necessity. There are going to be certain things in the masjid that are done inside of the masajid that she needs. For example, the circles of learning. The circles of learning that take place inside of the masjid. The woman, she needs that. So she has to come out of her house and go to the masjid. To learn. The woman, even if she wants to go to the masjid to pray, go to the masjid to pray, the likes of Salatul Fajr and so on and so forth. No problem. As we find the Sahabiyat, they used to go out to the masajid and they will pray. And they will pray and they will get up and then they will leave. We have many narrations. The women, they were present inside of these salawat, praying along with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is an indication that it's okay for women to come to the masjid. It's okay. The Shaykh, he only mentioned this point so as to show and to stress what? The level, or what would you say? The status of the home and how important it is. But however, this is not to take away from the fact that what? It's okay for her to come to the masjid. No problem. And so, the Shaykh, he brings, so as to clear up any ambiguities, to clear up any discrepancies, any misunderstandings. The Shaykh, he brings the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that is collected by Abu Dawood, and it's from the hadith of Abu Hurairah, Ibn Umar, and also Ibn Umar in another narration, في رواية أخرى, in another narration, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, لا تمنعوا إماء الله مساجد الله. Do not prevent the female slaves of Allah from the masajid of Allah. Do not prevent them. And it's important for the husbands. I don't want the husbands to come now and say, when the sister, she wants to go to the masjid, maybe she wants to go to Jumu'ah, or she wants to go to the classes that are inside of the masjid, or whether it's a class for Quran, Tajweed, Aqidah, Fiqh, Tafsir, whatever the class may be, a class, Islamic class inside the masjid. She wants to go, she wants to participate, and so on and so forth. She wants to go, she just want to go with her husband to pray Isha, for example, or go to pray Fajr, for example, and the like. And then he turns around and he says, no, but Allah Ta'ala, he says, وَقَرْنَ فِي بَيُوتِكُنْ. This is what he said to the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, stay inside your house. So, woman, you better stay inside your house. La. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, لَا تَمْنَعُوا. Do not prevent them. You men, do not prevent them. Do not prevent the female servants of Allah for going to the masajid of Allah. Na'am. But then the Prophet ﷺ, because he has to make the truth clear and explain, he said, وَبُيُوتُهُنْ خَيْرٌ لَهُنْ. He said, but their houses are better for them. Na'am. But however, If they want to go to the masjid, you don't prevent them from going to the masjid. Naam. What is meant by the house is better for them means what? صلاتهن في بيوتهن خير لهن من صلاة في المساجد. Meaning that their prayer inside of their homes, they get more reward for it. Naam. They get more reward for it than the prayers inside of the masjid. This is for the women. For the women, they get more reward for praying in their home than they get for praying in the masjid. But however, if the woman wants to go to the masjid, don't prevent her. Let her go to the masjid. Ma'am, let her go to the masjid. وقال, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا يخرجنا تفلات. So now there is what? There is some advice. That if they are to go out, right? They want to go to the masjid, or they have to go out to fulfill something, to take care of something, run an errand, or whatever the case may be, then let them go out odorless. Let them go out odorless, meaning with no, the Shaykh he says, يعني غير متزينات وغير متطيبات, that they will go out without in an undecorative manner, and they will go out without being perfumed. They will go out in an undecorative manner, and they will go out without being what? Perfumed. نعم. وقد ابتلي كثير من النساء بالخروج لا لشيء إلا لتجول في الأسواق متزينات متطيبات يكشفن وجوههن إذا دخلنا في المكاتب أو في المكتبات التجارة. The Shaykh he says, but many of the women, they have been tested. Many of the women, they have been tested. Whereas they will go outside, not for any reason, not to take care of any reason, any necessity. They go outside for no reason except to walk around the marketplaces. To walk around the marketplaces. Not that they need something from the marketplaces, but they just hanging out in the marketplace, hanging out inside the mall. But they go out in a decorative manner. They go out and they're reeking with perfume, or they're reeking with the smell of heavily scented body lotions. You know, somebody else may say, well, I didn't put no perfume on, but then they put body lotion on that's stronger than perfume. Same thing. Right? And they go out exposing their faces when they enter inside of the stores. When they enter inside the stores, you find that their faces are exposed. وَإِذَا دَخَلْنَا في معرض تكشف إحداهن وجهها عند عمال وعند الباعة وعند الباعة كأنهم من محارمها. When she goes out, when she enters inside the store, even if she was covered, even if she had on niqab and so on and so forth, but as soon as she enters into the store, you may find some of them, they will take the niqab off and they will expose their face. They will expose their face for interacting with the ammal, with the male workers that are there. And when they are interacting with the one who is buying, or the one who is selling, the owner of the business, the merchant, and so on and so forth, they will show them their face and remove their niqab, as if these individuals, they are from her maharim, as if they are from her maharim. And you find this happens, maybe not so much here in this country, although it happens, but in the lands where you find more of the women, they wear niqab and so on and so forth, you'll find some of the sisters doing this, that is as if when the niqab is only when they're on the street, when they're inside of a structure, then they take it up and so on and so forth, even though there may be men around who are not from their maharim, who will gaze upon them and so on and so forth. وتتبسط معهم في القول نعم وعياذ بالله وتمازحهم وَتُضَاحِكَهُمْ. And you will find even some of the sisters, then they start to what? They start to, when they're interacting with the patrons, and when they're interacting with the owners of these businesses, and I want the sisters to pay very close attention to this. When they're speaking back and forth about the buying something, or the purchase of an item or a good, and so on and so forth, a commodity, then they have to do so in a legislative manner. One, they don't expose from their bodies that which they are not allowed to expose, and these individuals are not allowed to see. Just because the man is selling you something, that don't mean he has that honor to be looking upon you like that. So don't expose yourself, don't uncover yourself in front of the person who you're buying from. Now, also, just because you're speaking about business and you're doing the business transaction, then you keep it to business and you speak in a very professional manner. This does not open up the door that now this seller, he's a person that you can just talk freely with. Because some of the women, as the Shaykh mentions, when they in this situation, they buying and selling, then they start smiling. They start smiling. They start speaking inappropriately. They start speaking inappropriately with the person who they're buying these things from, right? When they're in the shops or in the showrooms or so on and so forth, they start having friendly conversations with them. They start joking with them, and they start making them laugh. Now, start playing with them and joking with them, making them laugh, making jokes and things like that. Ya subhanallah. And this also goes for the brothers. Let me just stop here for a second. This also goes for the brothers. It is not for the brother to be giggling and laughing and making jokes with the cashier, or the woman, worker, and so on and so forth. No, but you say what you have to say, you be to the point. That doesn't mean you're not to be nice and respectful. You be nice and respectful. But that doesn't mean that you joke with her. That doesn't mean that you sitting there, making her laugh and things like that. No, it's not the place for that. It's not the place for that. She is not a person who is halal for you to interact with her like that. But if it's business, you straight to the point. You don't do all this type of this type of other stuff. And we have a tremendous example of this. You understand? And this is how people are to be. And this is the modesty that they are to have. Because a person acting like this in this manner, subhanallah, the Shaykh, he says, فَأَيْنَ الْحَيَاءُ يَا نِسَاءَ الْمُسْلِمَاتِ. He says, where is your shyness, O Muslim women? Where's your shyness at? Where is that? Na'am. أَمَّا تَتَّقِينَ اللَّهِ. He said, but rather you have to fear Allah. You have to fear Allah. Na'am. Subhanallah, we have a beautiful example inside of the Quran on how females are to interact with males. Now, on how the females, they are supposed to interact with the males. And this can be found in Surah Al-Dhariyat. And these ayat, they are outside of the advice of the Shaykh, but they are upon the topic. So I also want them to be added to the homework. And this will be from verse number 24 to verse 30. From 24 to verse 30. From Surah Al-Dhariyat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is an example of how men and women are to interact when they have to speak to each other. This is an example on how men and women, males and females, we should say, more better, how males and females should interact with one another when they have to directly speak to one another for necessity. Now, listen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, هَلْ أَتَاكَ هل أتاك حديث ضيف إبراهيم المكرمين. He says what means, has the story reached you of the honored guests, the three angels, meaning the honored guests, they were the three angels. Jibreel, alayhi salatu wassalam, along with two other angels, alayhum salatu wassalam, when they were the guests of Ibrahim. When these three angels, they were the guests of Ibrahim, alayhi salatu wassalam. Allah Ta'ala, He says, إِذْ دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ فَقَالُوا سَلَامًا قَالَ سَلَامٌ قَوْمٌ مُنْكَرُونَ. When they came to him and they gave him salam, they gave him salam. Naam. He answered them with salam. He answered them with salam, and he said, you are people who are unknown to me. قَوْمٌ مُنْكَرُونَ. You are people who I don't know. Naam. You are people who I don't know. Because the angels, when they come down and they take the form of humans, they take the form of what? Of men. Naam. They take the form of men. So he said, you are people who I don't know. But even with that, to show you, and there's many benefits inside of these ayat, but just looking at the law here, even with that, it shows you what? How you're supposed to treat your guests. How you treat your guests. Even though he didn't know him, no problem. He's still going to honor his guests. فَرَاغَ, Allah Ta'ala says, فَرَاغَ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِ فَجَاءَ بِعِجْلٍ سَمِينٍ. He says, so he went, then he turned and he went into the house. He went to his household and he brought out a roasted calf. He brought out a roasted calf. Naam. And this, for them to eat. And he honored them with a banquet. If anyone knows how big a calf is, subhanallah, that's honoring your guests, you know. فَقَرَّبَهُ إِلَيْهِمْ قَالَ أَلَا تَأْكُلُونَ. So he placed it before them. And then he said to them, will you not eat? You understand? Because what? Because angels, one, they are not females. One, they are not females. Naam. This is one. Two, when they take human form, they take the form of males. Right? They take the form of males, naturally, because they're not females. But three, what? Angels don't eat. They don't eat, and they are not nourished by what we are nourished by. You understand? So they don't eat. So Ibrahim, he made this big meal for them, not knowing that they were malaika at the time, not knowing that they were angels at the time. So, and then he presented it to them, he gave them some. But they didn't, he didn't see their hands moving for it. He didn't see their hands going to partake of his meal. So he asked them, you're not going to eat? أَلَا تَأْكُلُونَ. You're not going to eat? فَأَوْجَسَ مِنْهُمْ خِيفًا. So then he got scared of them. When he saw that they wasn't eating, then he got scared of them. And the ulama, they mentioned, the ulama of tafsir, which is another benefit that we mentioned briefly, is that he got scared of them because the Arab, it was from their custom, right? And this is, even in the time of Jahiliyyah. In the time of Jahiliyyah, it was their custom that there was honor. There was even honor amongst thieves. Now, there was even honor amongst thieves. To the point where if there were individuals who they was going to rob you, or they was going to do something, to you, kill you, rob you like that, they wouldn't eat your food because they saw it as being disrespectful. How I'm going to eat the man food, act like I'm going to be cool with him, but I know I'm about to rob him. You understand? So if they knew they was going to do something to you, they won't eat your food because they see that's being disrespectful. That's not being on the up and up. We came here to rob you. We ain't came here to act nice with you. You understand? So when Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, he saw this, he thought, this crossed his mind. Maybe they come to do something, they have some bad intentions, right? So he got scared. So when the angels, when they saw that he got scared because they wasn't eating the food, Naam, Allah Ta'ala, He tells us, قَالُوا لَا تَخَفْ. They said to him, don't get scared. Don't get scared. وَبَشَّرُوهُ بِغُلَامٍ عَلِيمٍ. And then they gave him glad tidings of that he was going to have a son. Then they gave him the glad tidings that he was going to have a son. Naam. So at this point, they revealed to him that they were angels. right? They're not humans. Don't get scared. We're angels. And we give you glad tidings that you're going to have another son. You're going to have another son. Naam. And here's the shahid. Here's the shahid as it comes as Imam Ibn Qayyim, he points out that in this shows you the manner in which the females are to speak to the males and the males are to speak to the females. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say in the next ayah, فَأَقْبَلَتِ امْرَأَتُهُ فِي سَرَّةٍ فَصَكَّتْ وَجْهَهَا وَقَالَتْ عَجُوزٌ عَقِيمٌ. Subhanallah. She said two words. عَجُوزٌ عَقِيمٌ. Naam. It says, and then his wife came forward with the voice. Yeah, she came forward with the voice. And she had put her hands on her cheeks, right? As women do, right? When they're shocked by something or so on and so on. She put her hands on her cheeks. And then she said unto them, she said, "A old barren woman?" Meaning he's going to, giving him, she heard that they gave him glad tidings that he was going to have a son, right? So she said, "A old barren woman?" Two words she said to them. Ajuzun Aqim, an old barren woman. And then the Malaika, in showing the manner in which, because one, by her saying that, she said exactly what she needed to say to convey what was on her mind. Right? She used the exact words needed to convey what was on her mind. And in that case, what? It was just two words. Ajuzun Aqim, from a woman that's old and barren. Because what? What's understood is, what wasn't said is understood. Meaning, how is a woman who's old and barren going to have a kid? What do you mean? You give her the glad tidings of a kid. How is a woman who's old and barren going to have a kid? But she didn't have to say all that. All she had to say was, an old woman who's barren. The angels understood what she was saying. But look how they responded to her. قالوا, they said, the angels, they said, كذلك قال ربك إنه هو الحكيم إنه هو الحكيم العليم. They said, verily, this is what your Lord has said. Like this is what your Lord has said. Or even so, old and barren, this is what your Lord has said. This is what your Lord has said. And verily, He is the all-wise, the all-knower. So they were very, very to the point. You see, they didn't go into any side conversation, things that wasn't relevant, but they stuck straight to the point. كَذَلِكِ قَالَ رَبُّكَ إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْحَكِيمُ الْعَلِيمُ. And thus, even so, this is what your Lord has said, and verily, He is the all-wise, the all-knowing. Naam. So, Imam Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, this is the manner in which men and women, they are to interact and to speak with one another. This is meaning that they are to say whatever needs to be said and nothing more. They are to be straightforward and direct to the point. Conveying what needs to be conveyed using minimal amount of words. Now, I'm using minimal amount of words. Now, that means that you speak in a manner where you know that the audience will understand what you're saying. That don't mean you start walking around speaking all cryptically and stuff like this, and then people gotta guess, because that's gonna end up some more conversation. Because now they don't get it, so they, so on and so forth. So to speak in a manner where what you say what you need to say in a very clear and direct manner. You say what you need to say in a very clear and direct manner, and what? And you keep it on topic. You keep it on topic, and you speak and you interact in a professional manner, for lack of a better term and or translation. So, with that, it is incumbent, the Shaykh he mentions, كذلك يجب على المرأة إذا أرادت الخروج. Now we get back to if the woman has to go out. After speaking about, but it's better for her to stay in her home. Now we get back to what was originally mentioned, that if she has to go out, as the Shaykh remember before, he said if she goes out, then she goes out to fulfill a necessity that is not or cannot be fulfilled except by her going out, and she goes out in a manner where she is not perfumed. Then he says, so thus, getting back to that now, this topic, if she must go out, if she has to go out, نعم كذلك يجب على المرأة إذا أراد الخروج أن تلبس ثياب ساترة ضافية التي ليس فيها زينة. ثياب الضافية نعم على جميع الجسم، واسعة التي لا تلتصق بالجسم وتبين الأعضاء. He says she has to go out wearing clothes that adequately cover her. Clothes that adequately cover her and covered in an adequate manner. And this clothing which adequately covers her, it cannot be decorative. It shouldn't be all decorated. Now, and the Shaykh is going to mention what's meant by that shortly. He says, وَثِيَابٍ, and it has to be clothes that cover the whole of her body. وَاسِعَةٍ, has to be clothes that are wide, not clothes that stick to her body. Not clothes that stick to her body, nor clothes that describe her body parts, nor clothes that describe her limbs, because what they stuck to the body, so they describe what the limbs of the body. فَثَوْبُ الْمَرْأَةِ لَابُدَّ فِيهِ مِنْ مُوَاصِفَاتٍ. So the clothes of the woman, it has to have these characteristics. 1. الأولى أن يكون واسعا لا ضيقا, that it has to be wide. It has to be wide. It cannot be tight. Cannot be tight. And this is a very, very, very important to mention. It can't be tight. It has to be wide, not tight. الثانية, second, أن يكون ضافية على جميع جسمها, that it has to be covering or adequate, such as it covers all of her body. Such as it covers all of her body. وَلَا يَبْقَى شَيْءٍ مِنْ جِسْمِهَا يَظْهَرُ, and nothing from her body should be left to be seen. لا كفان ولا قدمان ولا شيء من الوجه, not her hands, nor her feet, nor her face. وَيَكُونُ سَاتِرًا لِجَمِيعِ جِسْمِهَا, but it has to cover all of her body. Thirdly, أَلَّا يَكُونَ فِيهِ زِينَةً, that it should not be any type of decorative or decorations inside of it. بِأَنْ يَكُونَ ثَوْبًا عَادِيًا, but it should be a regular thawb, a regular abaya, a regular jilbab. Not nothing that's all over the top and things like that. لَيْسَ فِيهِ زِينَةً, it's not decorative to the point where, as the Shaykh mentions, it's not decorative such as تَجْلُبُ الْأَنظَارِ إِلَيْهَا, it's not decorative to the point where it forces the eyes in her direction. It forces people to look upon her and to gaze upon her because of the whatever decorative that she's wearing. So a bedazzled jilbab, of course, is out of the question. A bedazzled khimar or whatever, then of course this is out of the question. And the Shaykh, he mentions, and it's very important that the sisters, we look at this and we understand the reality of the situation and the danger that is contained in going against and not implementing these affairs. The Shaykh, he says, وَلَا تَحْذِرَ الْمَرْأَ الْمُسْلِمَةِ, and let the Muslim woman beware. مِمَّا أَخْبَرَ عَنْهُ الرَّسُولُ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, let the Muslim woman beware from that which the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he informed us about. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he informed us about a tremendous affair that the Muslim woman, she needs to beware that she don't fall into it. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, صنفان من أهل النار, there are two types of people from the fire, two types of the people of hell, two types of people who's going to hell. Now, Lam arahuma, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I didn't see them. There are two types of people that's going to hell, but I didn't see them. Now, then he explained who they are. He said, Nisa'un kasiyatun ariyatun ma'ilatun mumilat ru'usuhun ka'asnamatil bukht. He said, there are two categories of people who are destined for hell, who I didn't see them. The first one are women who are clothed yet naked. They clothed, but yet they are naked. They are inclining to evil, and they head turners, for lack of a better term and or translation. Na'am. Mumilat, yani they head turner, they turning heads, they grabbing attention, people's looking in a direction. Why? Because of the manner that they dressed in. You understand? Their heads, their hair, meaning the hair, their hairstyles, right, is like the humps of camels. It's like the humps of camels. Now, I mean, you sisters, you know, I don't know the name of hairstyles, but you know the kind of bun and all that type of stuff that where they do their hair, where it look like a hump on their head. You understand? Like a hump on top of their head. Huh? But the Prophet ﷺ, he said, المائلة لا يدخلن الجنة ولا يجدنا ريحها. He says that these women who they have their heads, their hair is like the humps of the camel, right? Of the bukht camel. He says that they will not enter into paradise, nor will they perceive its odor. They will not enter into paradise, nor will they be able to smell the beautiful fragrance from paradise. This was the first type. The second type, وَالرِّجَالِ مَعَهُمْ سِيَاطٌ. There will be men that will have with them like whips. Now, they will have with them like whips. كَأَذْنَابِ الْبَقَرِ. These whips will be like the tails of the cow. Like the tails of the cow. Now, يَضْرِبُونَ بِهَا النَّاسِ. And they will be beating the people with it. So the people that will have these whips, they're like the tails of cows, they will be beating people with it. These two categories of people are from the people who the Prophet ﷺ, he informed that they are destined for the hellfire. Now, but as far as the second type, we'll leave discussion upon that, because our focus in this particular class is the advice of the Muslim women. So the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, Nisa, Kasiyat, Ariyat, women who they are clothed yet they are naked. Now, what does this mean? They got on clothes but yet they still naked at the same time. The Shaykh, he mentions, he says, يعني لابسات الثياب, they wearing clothes, ولكن هذه الثياب لا تستر. He said, but these clothes, they don't cover. They wearing clothes, but these clothes don't cover. إما لأنها قصيرة, either because they are small. They are small. So she got on clothes, but they small. Meaning like a mini skirt, you understand? She got on something in clothing, but it's short. It don't really cover nothing. It's little, right? لا تضفى على بدنها. It doesn't adequately cover her body. بل تخرج كفاها. But her hands may be exposed. Now listen what the Shaykh is saying. But her hands may be exposed. أو ذراعاها, or her arms are exposed. Her hands may be exposed or her arms are exposed. ويخرج قدماها أو ساقاها, or her feet may be exposed and her shins or her lower leg, her calf are exposed. That lower leg, the shin and calf area, maybe all that is exposed. Naam. And that's like what the skirts the nuns be wearing. That's like the skirts that are adorned by the nuns. You understand? And this fits the description of kasiyat, ariyat, women who are clothed yet naked. So now what about somebody in Daisy Dukes? Somebody in mini skirt and that? What about that? Wa'iyadu billah. So all of this will fit into the description of those who are clothed yet naked. وَعَلَيْهَا لِبَاسٌ, or it could be, yani she has clothes on, in other words, thus she has clothes on, وَلَكِنَّهُ غَيْرُ سَاتِرٌ, but it doesn't cover her. أَوْ تَلْبِسُ لِبَاسًا ضَافِيًا, or she wears clothes that cover everything. Listen, this is another way she could be clothed and naked. She wears clothes that it covers everything. But, لَكِنَّهُ شَفَاف, but it's shafaf. لا يستر ما وراءه, but it is see-through. It doesn't cover, it doesn't conceal what's under it. And this is, وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, this has become popular. Women, they may have on long flowing dresses, but what happened? You can see right through it. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. You can see right through it. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. نعم. The Shaykh, he says, مثل ما يحصل في البلاد التي لا تلتمس بآداب الإسلام, فسيرى هذا إلى بعض نسائنا في هذه البلد إلا من رحم الله عز وجل. He says, and the example of this type of clothes that's like see-through and so on and so forth, he said this is from that which has taken place, right, inside of the lands in which they are not observant of the Islamic mannerisms and the Islamic mode of dress and morals and so on and so forth. And thus it has even reached some of the women inside of this particular land, except for those whom Allah has mercy upon, except for those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has mercy upon. Naam. And the ulama, they also mention that also what enters into this description is like the women who they are clothed, naam, and perhaps the clothing, it covers all of their body, but it is clothing that is skin tight. It is clothing that is skin tight. So it describes with a full description that which is under it. Or as they say, it leaves nothing to imagination. It leaves nothing to imagination. Na'am. Wa'iyadu billah. All of this, ya ibad, is tremendous, and the fitna that comes from it is tremendous. It is tremendous, and the fitna that comes from it is tremendous. The harms that the woman is confronted with when these things are violated, then they are well known, and they are most unfortunate indeed. And the harms that are ripped upon a society where the women, they openly display themselves in such a manner, then it is well known, and is most regrettable, and it is most tragic indeed. Bila shak wa bila rayb. And this brings us to the next part of the advice of the Shaykh, hafidhahullah ta'ala, where he mentions the ayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as it goes on in Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 33, right? After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells to the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَقَرْنَا فِي بَيُوتِكُنْ, and stay inside of your homes. But, of course, if they must go out, Allah ta'ala, He says, وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَا تَبَرُّجَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ تُبَرُّجَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ الْأُولَى. Allah ta'ala, He says what means, and do not display yourselves, and do not display yourselves like in the first times of Jahiliyyah. Like in the first times of Jahiliyyah. Do not display yourselves like that. Now, and women, you know how the woman goes out and she puts herself on display, wa'iyadu billah, to be taken advantage of and to be exploited by the males, wa'iyadu billah. Na'am. So do not display yourself like that, like the time of Jahiliyyah, because as we know as previously mentioned, the Muslim woman, she is more precious than that. She is more noble, more honorable, more precious than that. She is more precious than all of the gems, diamonds, and precious stones. She is more precious than all of the valuable metals, gold, platinum, silver, whatever. She is more precious than all of these things combined. So thus, it is not befitting for her to cheapen herself and to display herself with this type of display. So that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and do not display themselves like in the time of the Jahiliyyah. Do not go out and openly display yourself like in the time of the first Jahiliyyah. But inshallah ta'ala, we'll pick up from this and we'll look more about what is a tabarruj and so on and so forth inside of the next week's class. فنكتفي بهذا القدر وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وجزاكم الله خيرا.